coastline. Can you hear the mesmerizing sound of the waves crashing on the shore? Can you smell the healing, salt air? Can you conjure up the wonder of when you first stared off at the horizon as the sun passed off into the distance? Justin feels the ocean is not just beautiful, but important in many regards. In today's speech entitled An Island Getaway, Justin will inform us on a pressing environmental issue facing our oceans that may prove to be one of mankind's greatest challenges to overcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Justin Wardette's speech, An Island Getaway.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters, and of course, most welcome guests. As Rebecca mentioned, I feel that the ocean is both important and beautiful. And when you see a photograph such as this one here, it's hard to argue against this idea. But my friends, the ocean is in trouble. From over-acidification to overfishing to pollution, particularly in the form of plastic. Take a look at these photos. This is what some of our waterways are beginning to look like. Perhaps you have heard of what is called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is essentially a giant floating island of plastic in our Pacific Ocean. Today, I'm going to tell you about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, how it came to be, how big it is, what its implications are, and what is being done about it. So let's start by asking ourselves, what is going on? In this photograph here, you see a picture of the northern Pacific Ocean. These red arrows indicate the major currents in the waters. These are also called gyres. So what happens is the plastic makes its way into the water. The minor currents carry the plastic into these gyres. And once the plastic is in there, the current is so strong that it cannot escape. It spins around, and eventually it clumps up with other bits of plastic, and it forms bigger and bigger and bigger sections of plastic floating in the water. So that is how the Great Pacific Garbage Patch came to be. Just how big is it? I came across a few different measurements, and they range from 270,000 square miles in size, which is roughly 484 football fields, which is not very small. The biggest number I came across was 5,800,000 square miles, which is roughly 9% of the entire ocean. But the most frequently used term to describe how big this problem is that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is twice the size of the state of Texas. So as you can see, this is a very large problem. And it's not staying still. Greenpeace tells us that every year 100 million tons of new plastic is generated. 10% of that, or 10 million tons of that plastic, will end up in the ocean. So this is a large problem that is growing. To make matters worse, plastic does not biodegrade. It breaks down when exposed to light in what is called photodegeneration. The big chunks of plastic break down into smaller and smaller pieces until they're the size of, say, a fish or plankton. They, of course, get down to the microscopic level as well. But what we're starting to see is that sea life is mistaking this plastic for food. Some of them die by choking or whatever, and some live. But whether they live or die, they are ingesting the plastic, and the chemicals, such as BPA, are being absorbed into their bodies, and thus into the food chain. Think about that the next time you're having your grilled prawn taco down at the taqueria. speaking of the food chain, it doesn't stop there in terms of its impact. This plastic, which covers twice the size of Texas, acts as a filter. It blocks out sunlight. And the base of the food chain in the ocean is plankton and algae. Both of these organisms require sunlight to thrive. And that sunlight is being blocked out. So this is a large problem that is growing, and it has some severe implications. So what is being done? So far, an effective solution has been elusive. But this young man here, 19 at the time he came up with the idea, is Boyan Slat. And he came up with this project that he says will clean 50% of the problem in a matter of 5 years. And let me tell you what he's doing. Hopefully all of you can see. This is what he is doing. If you can see this yellow line here, that is a boom. Think of it as a net that goes down into the water that doesn't have holes. It goes down far enough that the light plastic can't get underneath it when it's pushed by the current, but it doesn't go so far down that the current is interrupted, and it doesn't go so far down that sea life can't get under it. So the idea is the current pushes the plastic along the booms until you get to these filtration devices, which essentially separate the plastic from the water. Plastic is carried into these receptacles where we can then go pick up the plastic, bring it back to shore, and recycle it. After a year-long study as to whether or not this project is realistic, a third party concluded that it is scientifically possible, it is economically feasible, and it is environmentally safe. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that this works. But what if we want to do more than just cross our fingers? How can we help? First of all, you can go to theoceancleanup.com, which is the website for Boyan's project. You can contribute funds, and you can volunteer as well. But for those of us who need to stay closer to home and are maybe perhaps a little bit tighter on budget, what else could we do? My suggestion is the 3 R's. First of all, make sure that we are recycling. Recycling is a very important part of the equation. Next, we need to make sure that we are reusing as much as we can. Think about the little sandwich bags. How many of those do you toss in the garbage or in the recycle bin when you can simply rinse them out and dry them and reuse them again? Save money and save the planet. Finally, the third R is to refuse. Refuse to spend your money in ways that contribute to the problem. Buy locally. Buy things that require less packaging. Buy things of quality that you know won't end up in the garbage in 1 month. Ladies and gentlemen, our oceans are in trouble. But if we can support people like Boyan Slat, and if we can practice the 3 R's, we can ensure that our children and our grandchildren and ourselves can move from an ocean that looks like this back to how it should be.